All right, we launched a new series today. This is our just after Easter Sunday new series. It goes on for the next several weeks, and it's called Refrestoration. Refrestoration is a word that we made up. It's three words together. It's rest, refresh, and restoration, all in the same word, because that's what this series is all about. We're going to be looking through a passage in the Bible located in Psalm 23. Middle school students, you are invited to stay with us today. Yeah, our middle school pastor has strep throat, so they'll all be coming back in just a minute. All right. So check it out. Refrestoration. And Psalm 23 is that psalm that I think most people know about. You usually hear it where? Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. And where are you usually when you hear that? At a funeral. That's right. Now, I don't know why, because it's really a psalm written about life and what God offers in this life. Hey, middle schoolers, come on back in. Awesome. Give them a hand. Our middle schoolers there. Cool. Thank you for joining us. Sorry for the confusion. My bad. All right. So Psalm 23 is a psalm about life and rest and refreshing. We thought we're going to show in Psalm 23 how the setting is perfect for getting refreshed and restored. But to do that, we thought we need to modernize it a little bit because the old way won't make sense to you. The new way is this island feel. So we're going to be carrying this kind of a tropical Hawaiian. We're going to have some cool music coming on the outdoor, starting in the outdoor service next Sunday. You'll notice kind of some themes around, but every Sunday we're going to do something different. We're going to have Hawaiian shirt day or flip-flop day with some prizes, just some fun stuff to have some fun with it. But that's in our culture. If you think about honestly just unpacking all of your stress and really just letting go of all your worries and just being able to disconnect from everything in life, how many people would agree that just a hammock underneath a palm tree with the sea breeze and the noise of the waves crashing and maybe a little Hawaiian music, right? And the coconut with the straw or a pineapple. How many would agree that pretty much does it for us in our culture? Would you agree with me? If not, what's wrong with you? Like, where do you go to get? Like, that's just context of our culture. We typically think of that as the place to really be refreshed and to get some rest. Now, let's go back to the Old Testament, all the way back in the beginning, the original biblical setting, kind of like our Hawaiian tropical island theme, the original biblical setting that conveys rest, refreshing, and restoration is the sheep and the shepherd. That's like tropical beach scene in the old ancient days, because the sheep rested in the shepherd's care and the pasture was the place kind of like the beach for us. It's that place where you really can just get renewed and just kind of let go and know that you're safe and let go, kind of get recharged. That's it, the shepherd and the sheep. In fact, all through the Bible we're going to learn there's no clearer picture of this widely understood imagery of great, incredible bond of intimacy between a shepherd and his sheep than this Psalm 23 account. It shows us, and we'll see all through the Bible, that really shows for us, that gives us the example of what it looks like and what God has for us in the order of being refreshed. It's this bond. We're going to learn so much about it. You're going to be shepherds by the end of this time, okay? And the shepherd is this, like, it carries this idea of love and care for the sheep like no other husbandry, like no other farming, like no other agriculture, okay? Now, we got to go backwards a little bit because most of us don't see shepherds every day, but we're going to understand and be able to bring it into context. To start our study, we're going to get to Psalm 23, and we're going to just look at the first line today, okay? But to get there, I want to show you how the Bible, even in the more familiar passages, really gives us an idea that sets us up to know what's really happening when he says, the Lord is my shepherd, and so on. Okay, now to fully understand that, we gotta see this dynamic between shepherd and sheep. And to do that, we're going to break it down. I want to start in Matthew chapter 9, and I want to show you what Jesus alluded to with regard to shepherd and sheep. Now, it's going to show us something. It's going to be totally revealing. Are you ready? You're going to see something that maybe you didn't see before about God. Matthew chapter 9 in verse 35 says, Then Jesus went about all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues, preaching the gospel of the kingdom, and healing every sickness and every disease among the people. Do you see it? Jesus came, he's God, he's man, and he came to do good for people. Do you see it? He's going through all the villages, and he's ministering to the people. He's helping people. He's giving goodness and recovery to people. And in the midst of doing that, giving all of the goodness of God to mankind, each village, each person individually, it says then, when he saw the multitudes, now he sees a large crowd of them, he was, it says, moved with compassion for them. We've looked at this before. This is our whole Unleashing Compassion project, comes from right here. He was so moved by what he saw that he had no other response but to act, but to do something. He was compelled to do something about it because he saw something. And it's what he saw that I want you to pay attention to this morning. But he saw the multitudes. He was moved with compassion for them because they were, watch this, weary and scattered like sheep having no shepherd. The scene that Jesus saw that broke his heart the most, that compelled him to move on behalf of mankind, to do miracles, was that he saw that the people were like sheep, except sheep not having a shepherd. And he described that in two ways. He described it as being weary. Weary means to loose or dissolve or unravel in this word. So if you imagine you pull your laces up tight or you lace something, strap it up tight, it's secure, it's good. When it starts to come undone, the knot comes undone, the bow comes, you've seen your kids' shoelaces, and it starts to come, then it comes unraveled. There's no longer support. Y'all tracking with me? There's no longer support. It's coming undone. There's something that's going to happen that's not good coming soon when it unravels. That's what Jesus sees when he looks into the people. Their lives are unraveling. Like they're trying to hold things together with an economic system that's not working, so they're unraveled anyway. They're trying to hold together culture and Jewish tradition and economics and politics and the being governed by the Roman Empire, the way of relating to one another. All these things they're trying to do based on some system, something they've learned, something they see. And according to Jesus, what he sees is it's not working because they're still coming apart. Don't you feel like that sometimes? I think Emily was being so genuine with us this morning. Just sharing this week and what's happened in the world. She just kind of feels unraveled. Not altogether tight. Not strong and ready for resistance. But instead feeling like you're coming apart. Not sure you can hold this thing together much longer. You're scrambling, right? Sometimes that's how we are. That's what he sees when he looks at people who are like sheep without a shepherd. And then he says they're scattered. And this word is like, have you ever gotten so mad, like you're holding something that's precious or valuable to somebody, and you're just so mad, and you so want to make them, you just throw that thing down and just, you ever done that? I never have, but maybe you have. Or you've seen it on TV, like it's just the ultimate expression of, I'm so angry, I just cast, that's this word, scattered. It's to throw down, disperse, and chase away in destruction. People, listen, this is the same today, the same yesterday, and it will be the same tomorrow. People in the world will always find that the world and its people will let them down. Wow, what an encouraging message. People were always going to find that the world is always going to let us down. Well, that's been history, hasn't it? That's been what you've probably discovered, I've discovered. Now, it doesn't have to be that way. We're going to talk about it. Jesus came to make it different, right? That's the good news. But the reason he came, listen. The reason he came to make it different was because it needed to be made different. Because the people, when they're like sheep without a shepherd, are feeling cast down by the world, cast down by circumstances, cast down by finances, chased away because a crushed dream or things didn't work out like they wanted to. And all this, when he sees this in the multitudes, all this so touches his heart that the way that he describes it is, this is like sheep when they don't have a shepherd. This is like sheep. Like, think about carefully what he's saying. There's no creature on this planet that is more apt to go astray on its own than the sheep. And listen to what he's saying. You see, because I think sometimes we think God came down and he was like, okay, this is it. You guys have so screwed up this world that I'm just going to come and judge. I'm just going to come and pour out my anger and wrath. And we think that God came to scatter us. We think that God came to cast us down, to pour out wrath and condemnation because he's so frustrated because we are so getting it wrong. But the truth is, the Bible teaches when he came, he saw that we were already weary, we were already cast down, and he was so moved with compassion because he cares for us and loves us that instead he saw our need and he provided for our need. Because that's what the shepherd does for his sheep when they don't have care. See, what he really saw is that they were without real love. They weren't cared for properly, people. And there was nowhere safe for them to belong. What God really wants is for you and I, this shows us God's heart right here, is for us to belong. To belong to him, to belong to something that is better, that is good, that brings hope in life. And we do belong with God. That's what this symbolism, this analogy, this scenery, this context of the shepherd and the sheep is going to show us over and over again. So let's break it down. When he saw their need, that's when he did something about it. So what is the need of sheep? Before we go to Psalm 23, what do sheep need? Because we are needy. The first thing is this: sheep need to be taught. He's very clear. He shows us this. Sheep need to be guided, instructed, told, shown. They constantly need to be taught. Look at Mark chapter 6. We're going to take a hop, skip, and a jump through all four Gospels. We started in Matthew 9. Now look at Mark 6. Read with me, verse 34. And Jesus, when he came out, saw a great multitude, and he was moved with compassion for them. This sounds familiar. Like, again, he was moved with compassion? Yeah, because they were like sheep, not having a shepherd. And so he began to thrash them. He began to judge them. He began to get angry and say, I'm so frustrated with you stupid people. You never get it right. That's not what it says. What did he do then when he was moved with compassion? He began to teach them many things. He began to teach them. See, sheep are like they don't know where to go to get the right grass. There's nothing in them that naturally takes them. They have to be led from one pasture to the other. They have to be led through the seasons because they would stay in the same already eaten field over and over again and die literally unless someone said, sheep, listen, we're going to go here because the grass is all dead here. You ate it all. Now we're going to go over to this new pasture, or the weather is changing here, and so we have to go to higher or lower altitude. So come with me. Sheep never instinctively know to do that. They have to be taught. They never know where fresh water is. They don't even know what fresh water is. Sheep will drink poisonous, diluted, contaminated water to their own death over and over and over again. You've heard of it. You've heard it. Like one sheep walks off the edge of a cliff, and you know what the others do? It's true. Ask a shepherd. They will all follow the sheep right over the edge of the cliff. Okay, I'm going to say it because you're thinking it. They're one of the dumbest animals on the planet. Now, the reason I hesitated to say that, because I think you're figuring out the analogy here, right? Shepherd, sheep. Jesus, me. And so saying that they're the dumbest animal on earth is a little bit insulting. It's like, are you saying that we're the dumbest people on earth. I'm intelligent. I'm smart. People are very smart. God has created us in his image. We're the only part of creation that has the cognitive ability to understand, receive, and give back to God himself, recognizing that he is God. Like, that's pretty intelligent. We created the technology to discover the atom, and not only that, to split the atom, and then we destroyed people with it. We advanced technology to the point where you can do everything on a phone that's this big. I mean, just think about it. Like my kids, they see the dial-up phone, the old one where you and they don't even know how to work it. Like, that thing is, I don't even know what to do with that. Like, that's just a paperweight to me. Look how far, this is just an example. Technology continues to make life easier. We're able to do more, be more productive. It's pretty cool what some of the stuff we can do is, and yet look what social media has translated into this week. People are feeling isolated and lonely. Suicide rates are the highest they've ever been. We have the greatest technology in our military, and yet we're the loneliest as a nation that we've ever been. You see, even though we're intelligent, there is some intelligence and some brain power to mankind. We still are as dumb as sheep when it comes to what do you really do with what you have in this world. Like, that's why there's such things as global warming and huge division, not only in our country, but worldwide. That's why there have been world wars. That's why we don't learn from those mistakes. We as a people, keep going back again. Yesterday there was a shooting in a synagogue in San Diego. You would think, after horrifically murdering millions of Jews in World War II, that as a people, we would learn from our mistakes. But we're like sheep. And sheep need to be taught. Sheep need to be shown what is right and what is good. Sheep need to be shown how to access peace through Jesus Christ and what it can look like. Sheep need to be taught. The second thing about sheep is they need to be pursued. Just think about this. God created us this way, like sheep. By the way, I'm not the one that said we're like sheep. God is. Okay, so you don't like it, take it up with him, but I find it's pretty accurate when I learn about sheep. They need to be pursued, like constantly chased after. Listen to Luke chapter 15, again, in the Gospels, what Jesus says. What man of you having 100 sheep, if he loses one of them, does not leave the 99 in the wilderness and go after the one which is lost until he finds it? Now, no, first of all, Jesus would not use this as the analogy of his little parable unless it was well-known fact. True? Do you like this? Right? Like, that's what a parable is. He used something that everybody knows the obvious answer to. Well, the reason that everybody knows the obvious answer is because this is a very common scenario with shepherds. A sheep wandering and being lost and needing to be chased down. Guys, I just want you to know, it's okay. It's okay this morning, Rancho Murrieta. You are going to wander. You are going to stray. Like, what kind of pressure does that take off for you? You come to church, sometimes I think, well, we got to be perfect. We have to have it all together, and when you don't, and then that's when you just come and you get all beat up and try it again, and that's what church is all about. What if church is about, okay, you know what? Let's be honest and real, and let's just admit that we are prone to wander. I'm prone to wander and go down dead ends and find the very same dead end I got stuck in last time and go, why did I end up here again in my marriage? Hello? Why did this happen again when I felt threatened by someone in a relationship? And so I said this, and I said something that I shouldn't have, and I verbally pushed somebody because I was feeling insecure and my pride was hurt. And I've done that thousands of times, and it always ends up destroying my most precious, favorite relationships. Because I'm prone to walk down that same weary, rock-filled course. You know probably the most common image of the shepherd. Wouldn't you agree? It's that shepherd walking with the sheep on his shoulders. This is a modern day picture, by the way, of a shepherd today. If you were to keep reading in that passage, you would find that actually it says in verse 5, and when he found this lost sheep, he lays it on his shoulders, rejoicing and coming back. And I think what I really want you to see, to understand who we are as people that God created, is this. When you wander and when you stray, there is something that God does do about it. There is some specific response that God, the shepherd, has when you wander off course, when you stray into an area that's dangerous or destruction or lonely. When you do that, he does respond, but it's what he does that I want you to see this morning. Look what it says. In the parable, he goes after the one which is lost, and these are four of the most encouraging words in the Gospels. Until he finds it. That's the nature of the shepherd. Because the sheep does always wander off course, the shepherd is glad to. The shepherd knows it's his own heart and compassionate response to go after the one that's lost, always relentlessly, until he finds it. That means God's not giving up on you and me. There isn't that point where you just go, you know what, I've done this before. God's probably just done with me. He's probably like, you know what, you're on your own. Hey, listen, that might be your mom or your dad or your response or your friend's response or your spouse's response or your kid's response, but that is not the response of God. The good shepherd never stops pursuing you when you stray. And listen, if we are honest and we know that I'm going to stray, it's going to be part of life, right? It's just okay. Then it's good to know that I also have a shepherd who agrees that I belong to him, and so when I do, he will come after me. He will stay with me. He will never give up on me. He will never turn his back on me. He will not abandon you when you are even in the wrong. Y'all just sitting there like you've heard that 1,000 times today. It's no big deal. Like, does that change your outlook a little bit? Does that make you want to at least reach out to God just a little bit when you're in trouble? Understanding that that's the way he is. We need to be pursued. Sheep need to be pursued. There's a third thing I want to show you about sheep. In their need, they need to be known. They need to be known. Now, in John chapter 10, I want to show you this. This shows us what it looks like to be known. In John chapter 10, in verse 3, it says, "To him the doorkeeper opens, and the sheep hear his voice, and he calls his own sheep by name, and he leads them out." He's talking about a sheep's pen where the shepherd keeps the sheep separate from maybe other sheep, or he keeps the sheep in his care with this pen, and he himself monitors, right? He himself is there. The doorkeeper opens. It's safe. And the sheep hear his voice, and he calls his own sheep by name, and he leads them out. And verse 4 says, "And when he brings out his own sheep, he goes before them, and the sheep follow him, for they know his voice." You got to understand, real sheep. I've studied with shepherds. Some of you know I go to Israel and lead study tours. One of the things that I spent in my first couple of tours the most time doing was sitting down with real live shepherds who are still doing it in the land where this was recorded, and interviewing them and asking them thousands of questions, because nothing has changed over time. And it's true. I've seen it. Now, I'm not a shepherd. Never owned a sheep, but I've seen it's true. Sheep are very skittish. And they're very insecure around voices and people that they do not know. And there's typically one person that they always, always, always know, and that's their own shepherd. And that's when they hear the shepherd's voice, they know that that shepherd knows them. Like, he knows who I am. And I know that he's mine. He's the one I'm bonded to. So I tested it. Maybe you've seen the video. It went viral on YouTube. Maybe you just heard the story, or maybe you've never heard this before. But I actually did it in Israel. I asked for permission in the sheep's field. 3 or 4 shepherds, and all their sheep are grazing in the same land. And I asked them, is it really true that if you spoke up, your sheep would recognize your voice and your sheep? And they said, yeah. Check it out. We'll do it. And so they went out in 4 different directions in the field. And they began doing their own call in their own voice that they use. And I'm not going to try to do it because I'd look like an idiot up here and you would laugh and you'd not get the point. So they'd yell out, hey sheep, it's Bud, your shepherd. It's Bud. And the sheep are all mixed all over the field. And the sheep that belonged to that shepherd would hear his voice and all come over to where he was. And the other sheep would hear their shepherd's voice, and they would all go to where their shepherd. And all he would have to do is make sure that his voice was heard so that they know, that's my shepherd. He knows me. I know him. He has my best interests in heart, and so I'm going to him. That makes in the heart. See, sheep aren't really super intelligent, but in the emotional or the heart makeup of the sheep, that's when they are most satisfied. That's when they are most content. As a matter of fact, it's been proven medically that if they're ill and sick, intimacy with the shepherd provides the strongest immunity. Of course, along with diet and nutrition. You were created, my friend, to be known. You want to be known. You want God to know your name, to know your heart, to know what you've been through, what you're feeling. When it's bad times, when it's good times. Isn't it good to know that when he created us that way, he did it because he also wants to know us and to be known? Like you may not be able to wrap your head around that. Like, wait a minute, I don't know what it means to know God and for him to know me. That's okay. That's okay. Maybe our series will help you over the next few weeks. In the meantime, just know this. It's true. Just begin to accept the fact that you can be known by God. And he does know you. You know him in an intimate bond relationship. That's what this Bible is teaching us. Right here. That's what Psalm 23 is going to show us. Finally, sheep need to be protected. Like they need to be protected. In John chapter 10, verse 7, says, Jesus said to them again, most assuredly I say to you, I am the door of the sheep, and all who ever came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not hear them. Verse 9, I am the door. If anyone enters by me, he will be saved, and he will go in and out and find pasture. Remember I told you, the biblical scene, setting, context of the sheep finding pasture is like us in the hammock with the little drink with the umbrella in it and the waves crashing and the little ukulele music in the background. Like that's in their culture, it was like, oh, that's relaxing, that's refreshing in the pasture. And they find out because Jesus says the good shepherd is the door. He literally provides or restricts access to his sheep. Why? Because they need to be protected. Did you know sheep are? Now I can't say conclusively that this isn't 100% true, so I have to disclaimer. I want to be honest, okay? I've been studying this for a long time. Sheep are the only animal I can think of that has absolutely zero natural defense. None. Like every animal I can think of has some kind of defense. And if there are some out there, none are more vulnerable than the sheep. I mean, if you think about it, like there's an ant in Malaysia that his head explodes poison when he's threatened. Dude, that's a serious way to defend yourself. But it only takes one ant to do that, and then whoever's threatening him will leave all the other ants alone, right? So it is a natural defense mechanism. You've heard of the Texas horned lizard? Like, you know why he's horned? Because it makes him hard to bite for his prey, just like the scorpion fish. Poisonous scorpion-like needles. Like, who's going to take a big bite of that? You only do that one time, right? So there's defense mechanisms. There's squid that squirt their ink to make the water cloudy so that they can escape. There's a stick insect. Have you ever seen them? They look just like the stick, right? It's camouflage. That's a defense mechanism. Some animals have super sharp teeth or sharp claws. Some animals have extreme speed, ways to camouflage, defend themselves. Like, God has given all these animals this really cool, amazing way to defend themselves, except the sheep. The sheep basically lunch on a platter. Like, it's free lunch. They don't even know when they're being threatened to defend themselves, much less know how to defend themselves. When a wolf, lion, predator comes, sheep have been known to, check this out, not run away, but run to the predator in fear. Okay? That's pretty stupid, right? Careful. Because I can't tell you how many times in my life I've run right into the trap the world sets, right into the trap the enemy sets, right into the place where I should not go. It's most dangerous for me because we are just like sheep and we need to be protected. So now we have this idea of what Jesus saw. I'm going to close the message in just a minute. He comes out to the crowd and he's ministering to people, right? Serving, helping, doing good. And he looks out and he sees them all, and this is his observation. Like, obviously he's seeing into their lives. These are just like sheep that don't have a shepherd. And what did that mean? Well, we talked about what sheep need. They need to be taught. They need to be pursued. They need to be known. They need to be protected. And when they don't have the shepherd, all of those things lead them to be vulnerable and to be weary and scattered and cast down and discouraged and having no peace. And so he did something about it. Ultimately, he went to the cross and offered forgiveness of sin so that we can be restored into an intimate, right relationship with him, and we could be his now and forever sheep, part of his fold, and he will shepherd us. Which leads us to Psalm 23. First line, the Lord is my shepherd. Now I want you to look at it a little bit differently. Maybe you've seen it and just heard it over and over. Maybe you never have, but I want you to look at it through this lens. What is it that he's really saying? David, the psalmist, who, by the way, was a shepherd by trade. The Lord is my shepherd. It's not just like this poetic way of saying, wow, God is a shepherd, we're his sheep. He's actually making a statement. This is a declarative statement of legitimate ownership and authentic affection. Like that's my coach. He's my president. Whether you like the one in office or not is irrelevant. At some point you probably liked one. Right? He's my math teacher. He's my father, my mother. She's my mother. Right? That's what we're saying. That one belongs to me. There's this sense of affection and bond. It's a legitimate ownership statement that says, I belong to this one is mine. And that's what he's saying God can be for you, the declarative statement of where, who, and what you belong to. Because he cares deeply for you. The Lord is my shepherd. You belong to him simply because he decided to create you in his own image as the object of his affection. You belong to him because he decided to remove the barrier of sin, the only barrier that was between you and him. And he paid for it with his own life so that you could forever belong to him. Are you getting to see the picture? As a sheep, you didn't do anything. You don't do anything to belong to the good shepherd. The Lord is your shepherd. Because he cared enough to make you his sheep. I'm going to tell you one little story, and then I'm going to close down, and we're going to be renewed and refreshed. I don't know if you are today, but I was renewed and refreshed just looking at the analogy and going through and realizing that's who my shepherd is. And it's okay that I'm a little needy sometimes, because y'all are needy too. In the Old Testament days when David was a shepherd, they would take their sheep, and when it was a little baby lamb, they would put the lamb's ear on a wooden block and take out their flint knife, and they would press deep into the lamb's ear, and they would make some sort of mark, usually a unique signifying mark in the ear of the baby lamb, to show a mark of authentic ownership. This one belongs to me. And listen, this is what shepherds will tell you. It's a cool story. Don't check out on me yet. We'll be done just a second. It's actually the experience of the mutual pain. So a shepherd will say, it's going to hurt the sheep, right? Like stick a flint knife through your ear, see if it doesn't hurt. It's going to hurt, but it hurts the shepherd because I'm physically doing this, inflicting this suffering to my little baby lamb, and I don't think there's anything cuter than the little baby lamb before they get dumb and ugly, right? And it's the mutual bond of sharing that suffering together. This is what shepherds will tell you. So amazing. That provides that first connection that the lamb has to his shepherd. Even though he did the pain, you were there to clean me up. You went through it with me. You are the one I survived with. You're my shepherd. That actually came, believe it or not, in the Jewish shepherds from an older tradition. It's a tradition where when they had slaves, and they would have slaves in their household, and a slave would decide or maybe be offered to become part of the family and no longer be a slave. Could you imagine? And there's all kinds of requirements with that. Like, once you're part of this family, you can never leave this family, but we're offering for a slave to no longer be owned property, but to be part of our own, like our own children, our own brothers and sisters. And when this happened, in order to signify that the slave was set free from slavery into being part of the family, they would hold the slave's ear up against the doorpost, and they would take one of those spikes that you make, like belt loops with and stuff, and they would hammer the spike through the earlobe of the slave. And that was the earmark. You ever heard of the term earmark? This is where it comes from. That was the earmark that showed, there's one that belongs to that family. He's no longer a slave. He belongs. That's the tradition that the Jewish shepherds borrowed from when they marked the ear of their little baby lambs. You're part of my family. I want you to think about the words. If anyone desires to come after me, he must deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. Our earmark, our mark that shows who we belong to, our ownership, that we become part of the family, is the mark of the cross. The mark that all of our debt was paid for, all of suffering was taken care of for us by the sacrificial death of the Lamb who was slain before the sins of the world. And now our mark is to take up our life and follow his life, and that's how we belong. That's how we belong. I don't feel like I belong to God, bud. I don't feel like it. Let me just ask you a question. Are you even trying, does it even matter to you to be a follower of Jesus Christ and not just a recipient? Now, you can be a recipient and receive all of God's free love and gift you want. It's all free. But if you want to feel like you belong, if you want to get in on the family good stuff, then you begin to follow him. Then you begin to bear your mark of the cross and put others' lives before your own and follow him. And give generously and follow him, and serve other people and follow him, and prefer kindness over bitterness and follow him. To love people who don't look like you and don't act like you and follow him. To forgive even when it hurts and follow him. And I'm just going to tell you, as we learn on that journey to begin following Jesus and doing what he does and being taught by him and cared for by him and protected by him, let me tell you something. There is no greater sense of belonging in human existence. The truth is, that's really who you are anyway. Will you just accept it and receive it? Is the Lord your shepherd? Make him your shepherd now. Lord, you are my shepherd. I'm bonded to you. I need a shepherd, and I'm going to follow you. And I look forward to how you care for your sheep and protect them. And we're going to see in Psalm 23 all the different ways that God gives refreshment and restoration and rest to those who are his sheep. Let's pray. Thank you, God, for an amazing offer. You created us in your image. You've given us life. You've given us forgiveness of all of our wrongdoing, sin, rebellion. On the cross, it's all paid for. And this morning, I choose to believe and receive and accept your forgiveness, your offer to be my Lord and Savior, to be my shepherd. Thank you that I belong. Thank you, you'll never stop pursuing me, even when I'm wayward. Thank you for giving me rest. To know that even though life's falling apart in some places, there's stuff going on I just can't understand, right here, right now, I'm very aware that you're in charge. And you are looking out for me. And my peace is in you, your ways of love. And I say thank you. This morning I say to you, Lord, you are my shepherd. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.